Hey everyone, thank you for joining me on this video. I wanted to do a quick update with you, a little bit different than the emails I've been sending out. I'm sure all of these things I'm going to talk about, I'll probably be writing about in the coming days and weeks because there's a lot of news continuing to happen on a regular basis, and it's been pretty crazy ride over the last few weeks. So I wanted to try something different with the video. Now, the biggest news I think out of this week, it's not actually maybe the headline news, but it's the biggest news in my opinion, is what's going on with Iran. So the United States and Iran have currently been in a conflict over Iran having nuclear capabilities. So there's been an effort by the United States to basically completely shut down Iran's nuclear power or ability to enrich uranium and create nuclear weapons. Now, we have seen them take action in that. I mean, there was a bombing earlier, not too long ago, where the United States hit 3 different areas of Iran in their nuclear facilities. And I think there's been an effort behind the scenes for Iran to restart that program, continue enriching uranium, and continue to build nuclear weapons. The United States wants none of that. And both countries have been kind of stocking up to a degree for a potential of conflict. The United States has loads and loads of ships in the area now, loads of aircraft carriers and different things along those lines that they have shifted into the Middle East and into the Irani area. At the same time, it seems like Iran is kind of prepping for potential defense that might need to happen. So the president has come out and basically said in the next 10 days, we'll know more. We'll know what action the United States is going to take with Iran. And we just have to keep watching and waiting and seeing. The only thing that's really happened from a market standpoint, we've seen oil up this week about 6%. So that's starting to creep up. You'll probably see that in your gas prices immediately. I think they're about $2.50 to start the week here in Lexington. Now they're closer to $2.80. So we're going to start seeing that probably circulate through a little bit, but we'll have to keep watching closely to see if it will continue to affect or influence any things in the market overall. The next thing that happened today on Friday has been this news that the tariffs that the administration put into place, specifically the reciprocal tariffs that basically said, I don't know if you remember Liberation Day back in the day, President Trump held up this big board and basically said every country, we're going to do half of the amount of tariffs that they have. And that's what we're going to enforce. The Supreme Court voted, and they basically came up with a 6-3 vote to say that that was not constitutional, that the administration could not put forth those tariffs. What's going to be fascinating about that news, because it was kind of expected to somewhat of a degree that the Supreme Court would probably shoot those down, is if the United States is going to have to repay the tariffs that have already happened. Are they going to have to go back and pay back the different companies and organizations that have imported things and had to pay those tariff bills? We don't know yet. We'll have to keep waiting and seeing. But we've seen stocks higher on Friday on this news concerning potentially not having as much tariff, specifically on China, that influences some of the bigger companies and are leading those companies higher today with the potential of less tariffs, less costs, and maybe ultimately less inflation for the consumer that has been kind of primarily paying for a lot of these different tariffs across the board. So we'll have to keep watching that one closely as well, but it's going to be an evolving process. Now, what has happened is the administration has basically came out after this news that came out and said, we're doing 10% across the board in some fashion of like a backdoor method to get this in place. We'll see if that sticks or if it doesn't stick. But the administration has obviously used these tariffs as negotiation tools along the way with the various other countries. So that's one that's going to be very interesting to continue to watch. The last point I will make is we got GDP numbers, so gross domestic product, which is basically a measure of what's going on in the United States, what's going on in the economy. That came out here on Friday. And that was well below expectations. It was pretty low for the fourth quarter of last year. They're attributing a lot of that to the government shutdown that lasted 6 weeks and was ridiculously long. So that shutdown really slowed down the United States economy. I don't know if investors are necessarily just going to throw out this data or if it's going to put more pressure on the Federal Reserve to be cutting interest rates and continuing to stimulate the economy. We'll have to continue to watch and see if that adjusts any of the things that the Fed is talking about when they have their next meeting in a few weeks. So a lot going on, continues to be a lot going on. What does it mean for your portfolio and your money? We're still sitting with that backed off risk across portfolios for clients. I think that's still a really good place to be. We're looking for opportunities if they present themselves. or if a potential war happens with Iran, or what comes from any of these news headlines, we're looking for potential opportunities in that space because sometimes, as crazy as it is to say, war has historically been good for markets after maybe some initial shock and decline that can happen in the markets. So we're going to continue to watch. We're still watching the technology area. We're watching the software names that have been hit and beat up significantly over some AI disruption concerns. And we'll continue to bring you as much as we can and just inform you of what we're seeing and watching. I hope everybody out there has a wonderful weekend. It sounds like winter's going to give a last little grasp at us. So hopefully everybody stays warm out there. We'll talk again soon.